Have you ever wondered what really happens in the final stage of life? It's something most of us avoid thinking about, yet deep down, we all want to know the truth. Science has studied the body and mind carefully, and there are certain signs that appear when the end of life is near. This isn't about fear, it's about peace, awareness, and preparing ourselves or our loved ones for a transition we all must face one day. Let's talk about the 3 most common scientific signs that the body is preparing to say goodbye. Sign 1, the body slows down. When the end of life begins to draw near, one of the clearest and most universal signs is that the body starts to slow down, not in a sudden or violent way, but in a quiet, almost gentle surrender, as if it knows it is time to let go of its endless work. For decades, maybe even for 80, 90, or more years, the body has carried us, digesting every meal, fueling every step, repairing every wound, pumping blood through our veins without us ever needing to ask, and yet, in the final chapter, it begins to conserve its last reserves of strength. This slowing down is not weakness, and it is not failure. It is nature doing exactly what it was designed to do, shift its focus away from constant activity and turn instead toward rest and release. The first signs are often small and easy to overlook. A person who once loved to eat may suddenly lose their appetite. Favorite meals no longer taste the same, or chewing and swallowing feel like more effort than they are worth. Some people stop eating altogether, and though this can be difficult for families to accept, science explains that the body no longer needs fuel in the same way. The digestive system, which once worked tirelessly to break down food and absorb nutrients, has slowed its rhythm, signaling that energy is being redirected elsewhere. Instead of fueling activity, the body begins to preserve only what is necessary for comfort. Alongside this, thirst often fades. It can be worrying for loved ones to see someone refuse water, but again, this is natural. As circulation and metabolism slow, the body's need for hydration lessens. Rather than forcing the body to keep up with the demands of daily living, it allows itself to find balance in stillness. Muscles, too, start to change. The same legs that once carried someone across fields, through cities, and down the hallways of their home may now feel heavy after only a few steps. Even lifting a fork or holding a conversation can seem tiring. What science tells us is that muscle mass begins to shrink, and energy production within cells decreases. The mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses inside our cells, work less efficiently, producing less fuel for the body to use. As a result, fatigue sets in more quickly, and rest becomes the body's way of protecting itself. This is why you may notice a person spending more time in bed, sleeping for long stretches, or dozing off during the day. It is not laziness, nor is it a sign of giving up. It is the body shifting into a state of preservation, using every drop of energy wisely. The slowing down also affects the organs in subtle ways. The heart, which has beaten faithfully from the very first moment of life, begins to ease its pace. It no longer pumps blood with the same force, which means less oxygen and nutrients are delivered to tissues. This is why extremities, fingers, toes, hands, and feet may feel cooler to the touch, or the skin may appear pale. The lungs, too, may work with less strength, and breathing may become shallow. None of these changes mean the person is suffering, they are signs that the body is in its final transition, prioritizing comfort over effort. Emotionally, witnessing this slowing down can be difficult. Families may feel helpless, wanting to encourage their loved one to eat more, drink more, move more. But it is important to remember that the body is wise. Forcing it to keep going against its natural rhythm often causes more discomfort. What helps most in this stage is gentleness, offering sips of water instead of full glasses, offering moist swabs for the mouth if swallowing is difficult, placing soft blankets over cool hands and feet, and creating an environment of calm where the person feels safe to rest. From a scientific perspective, this stage is the body's way of preparing itself for the final release. The systems that once worked in harmony to keep us alive begin to downshift, one by one, not chaotically, but in an orderly process. The body lets go of hunger, lets go of thirst, lets go of movement, and slowly turns inward. It is like a candle burning low, the flame growing smaller but still giving off warmth and light until the very end. Spiritually and emotionally, this slowing down also carries meaning. For the person experiencing it, the need for constant doing fades, and the need for simply being comes forward. Instead of chasing after the demands of the world, they are invited into rest, into reflection, into peace. For families, it can feel like saying goodbye to the vibrant, active person they once knew, but it can also be an opportunity to sit close, hold hands, share memories, and honor the life that has been lived. Science explains the mechanics of slowing down: reduced metabolism, decreased muscle mass, weaker circulation, and less efficient organ function, but beyond the science, it is an act of grace. The body, after years of labor, finally takes its bow. It no longer fights to stay in motion, instead, it prepares gently for its final rest. And though it can be heartbreaking to witness, understanding that this slowing is natural, expected, and even merciful can bring comfort. It tells us that death is not an abrupt tearing away, but a gradual easing into stillness. The body slows down so that the mind, the heart, and the spirit have space to prepare for what comes next. And in those quiet moments, between breaths, between words, there is often a sense of peace, a reminder that this is not just an ending, but also a completion of a journey long and well-traveled. Sign 2: changes in breathing and circulation. As the body moves closer to the final stage of life, one of the most noticeable changes that loved ones often witness involves breathing and circulation, and while these shifts can sometimes be unsettling to observe, they are deeply rooted in the body's natural process of letting go. Breathing, which once happened smoothly and rhythmically without any thought, begins to take on new patterns. Some breaths may come more slowly, others may come in quick bursts, and there may even be long pauses between them where it feels like the next breath will never arrive. These pauses are not a sign of suffering, but instead reflect that the body no longer needs the same constant supply of oxygen it once required during active living. This change is known in medical terms as Cheyne-Stokes breathing, a pattern where deep breaths alternate with shallow ones and occasional pauses, almost like waves rising and falling on a quiet shore. Though it can be frightening for families to hear the sudden silence between breaths, it is important to know that the person is not gasping or struggling. Rather, the body is slowly resetting its rhythm, easing toward rest. Along with these changes, circulation also begins to alter in profound but natural ways. The heart, which has been beating faithfully for decades, starts to slow its pace, and with that slowing, less blood is pumped through the veins and arteries. This reduced circulation means that the hands, feet, and sometimes even the nose and ears may grow cool to the touch. The skin may take on a bluish or purplish tint, often in a mottled pattern, especially around the extremities. While this can appear startling, it is not a sign of pain. Instead, it is the body's way of conserving its limited energy for the most vital organs, redirecting blood flow to the brain and heart while allowing less critical areas to rest. In these moments, families often place blankets around their loved one, not because warmth will reverse the process, but because the gesture itself provides comfort, love, and dignity. Breathing changes can also include sounds that some describe as rattling, gurgling, or heavy. This occurs because the muscles in the throat and chest are no longer working as strongly as before, and mucus or saliva can collect in the airways. While these sounds may seem distressing to hear, scientific understanding assures us that the person is not typically aware of them, nor do they cause pain. The sensation of struggling to clear the throat is not the same in the final days of life as it would be in a healthy body. Rather, the body has already begun to let go of the urge to cough or swallow. Caregivers often use simple remedies, like repositioning the person or offering gentle mouth care, to reduce the sound, but it is more for the peace of loved ones than for the comfort of the one who is transitioning, because by this stage, the body has largely released the need to fight such changes. On an emotional level, these breathing and circulation shifts carry deep meaning. To sit by a loved one and hear their breaths grow irregular, to see their skin change color, or to feel their hands grow cool, can bring waves of grief, fear, and helplessness. Yet, understanding the science behind these changes can transform fear into compassion. When we realize that the slowing heart is not failing but simply completing its task, that the uneven breaths are not struggles but signals of release, we can begin to see this stage not as an emergency but as part of the natural closure of life. The heart, after beating billions of times, finally takes its well-earned rest, and the lungs, after inhaling and exhaling countless breaths, allow themselves to soften their work. For families, these signs are invitations to be present, not to fix, not to intervene, but to accompany. A hand held gently, even if it feels cool, still communicates love. A whispered memory, even if the person does not respond, still brings comfort. A calm presence, even in the silence between breaths, can fill the room with peace. Scientifically, what is happening in these moments is the body transitioning from the fight for survival to the acceptance of closure. The autonomic nervous system, which once controlled breathing and heartbeat with steady precision, gradually releases its grip. Carbon dioxide levels may rise in the blood, which naturally induces drowsiness, calmness, and even a dreamlike state. This means that the person is often unaware of their changing breathing patterns and instead feels as though they are drifting into sleep. It is a gentle process, designed by nature to protect the person from fear or distress. Circulation changes, too, serve a protective purpose. By directing blood flow to the brain and heart, the body ensures that the most vital organs remain supported as long as possible, while gracefully allowing the less essential functions to fade. Emotionally, this stage teaches us about letting go. Breathing, something we take for granted every second of our lives, becomes a symbol of the transition between holding on and releasing. Each pause, each uneven rhythm, reminds us that life is both fragile and profound. For those watching, it can be heartbreaking to measure time between breaths, to wonder if this one will be the last. Yet within that heartbreak is also an invitation to treasure the present moment, to recognize the sacredness of sitting beside someone as they cross from one stage of existence to another. Science explains the mechanics: irregular respiration, reduced oxygen exchange, cooler extremities, mottled skin, but the emotional truth is that these changes mark the body's graceful surrender. Just as a sunset signals the end of the day not with a sudden stop but with a gradual fading of light, so too does the body dim its rhythms, preparing for rest. And while the world outside continues its rush, cars driving, clocks ticking, voices speaking, in that quiet room where a loved one's breathing changes, time itself seems to soften. Every sound, every pause, every heartbeat becomes part of a sacred rhythm, reminding us that life is not just measured by its beginning and its end, but by the love, presence, and compassion shared in between. Sign 3: Shifts in consciousness and awareness. As the final stage of life approaches, one of the most profound and mysterious changes that takes place is not in the body, but in the mind and consciousness, and while science has tried to study this process, much of it still carries a spiritual depth that numbers and data alone cannot fully explain. In the days or hours before death, a person often begins to drift between states of awareness, sometimes fully present and responsive, and other times distant, quiet, or seemingly lost in another world. Conversations may become fewer, and words may feel scattered or unclear, yet there is often a deep sense that the person is processing something beyond what those around them can see. From a scientific perspective, these shifts happen because the brain is gradually receiving less oxygen and blood flow as circulation slows, leading to drowsiness, confusion, or even vivid dreams and visions. Neurologists explain that as the brain's electrical activity decreases, awareness of the outside world fades, and the person turns inward, almost like entering a protective cocoon. Family members may notice that their loved one sleeps most of the time, wakes only briefly, or talks in ways that seem disconnected from the present. Yet what is extraordinary is that many people, even with weakened bodies, speak of seeing loved ones who have already passed away, or describe feeling like they are preparing to go home. These experiences, sometimes called deathbed visions, are reported across cultures and faiths, and while scientists may describe them as neurological responses to chemical changes in the brain, to those present they often feel deeply comforting, as if the veil between this world and the next has grown thinner. Even when speech is limited, expressions often carry meaning. An unexpected smile, a soft gaze, or a sudden tear can communicate volumes without words. To caregivers and family, it may seem like the person is withdrawing, but in truth, they are transitioning, slowly detaching from the physical world and connecting to something more inward, more eternal. This is not a sign of suffering. In fact, research suggests that many people in this stage feel a sense of peace, calmness, or even euphoria as natural chemicals in the brain, such as endorphins, are released. The body's way of shutting down is surprisingly gentle in the mind's experience, creating a sense of floating, dreaming, or resting rather than struggle. Still, for loved ones watching, these changes can be emotional and even painful, because it may feel like their loved one is slipping away mentally before they have physically left. Someone who once told stories, laughed, and engaged may now seem silent, far away, or focused on something invisible. But this stage also offers families an important reminder: even if the person does not respond, they can still hear and feel. Science has shown that hearing is often the last sense to fade, which means that the words of love spoken at the bedside, the gentle sound of familiar voices, or even the quiet playing of music can still reach the heart and mind of the person. This is why so many palliative care experts encourage families to keep talking, to share memories, and to say the things they most want to be remembered. At this stage, communication becomes less about conversation and more about presence. A simple hand resting on theirs, a soft whisper of reassurance, or even silent company can provide immense comfort. On a deeper level, these shifts in consciousness and awareness symbolize the transition between two worlds. Just as a newborn moves from the safety of the womb into the light of life, so too does the dying person shift from this world into what lies beyond, with awareness guiding them gently across that threshold. Families who witness these changes often describe them as sacred moments, as if the room itself feels different, quieter, filled with a weight of significance. Whether one interprets these shifts through science, spirituality, or both, they carry a universal message: the mind is preparing to release. This release is not about forgetting loved ones or letting go of meaning, but about finding peace and freedom from the demands of a body that has grown tired. In many ways, these changes in awareness are a gift, protecting the person from fear or pain, wrapping them in a dreamlike state where the boundaries of reality soften and acceptance grows easier. For those who remain, it can be hard to understand or accept why their loved one no longer speaks as much, no longer responds to every word, or no longer looks them in the eyes with the same recognition. Yet if we can shift our perspective, we may see that this stage is not about loss but about transformation. Just as dusk is not the end of light but the gentle blending into night, so too is this awareness a bridge between two states of being. Science provides us with terms like hypoxia, neurological slowing, and reduced cognitive function, but beyond those explanations lies a human truth: consciousness at the end of life often feels like a journey, a gradual departure from the noise of the world and an arrival into stillness. To sit with someone in this stage is to witness not just the end of life, but the mystery of the human spirit preparing for what comes after. Even in silence, even in confusion, even in drifting awareness, there is meaning. Every sigh, every glance, every faint word holds significance. Families who lean into this understanding often find healing, realizing that even as the body and mind fade, love does not. In fact, love may feel stronger, because it no longer depends on conversation or action, it simply exists, quietly, powerfully, undeniably. And when the final moment does arrive, these shifts in awareness remind us that death is not abrupt, but a process, one that eases the mind into release long before the heart takes its final beat.